Welcome, everyone. My name is Elizabeth Rose, and I am a certified divorce lending professional in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And today I am joined by Sherry Herzberg. She is the founder of Post Divorce Force in Atlanta, Georgia. And I think you'll find what she's doing and her story fascinating and definitely something that is very much needed in the divorce space. So if you will join me in welcoming Sherry.
Well, thanks so much for having me and asking me to join and helping to educate your people. I started Post Divorce Force about 3 years ago. I was divorced about 14 years ago. I had a 4-year-old. It was my goal to be available and to raise my daughter, and I was able to do so and stayed home. And around the time she was turning 13, I realized as the years were going to click forward, I was going to have more and more time for myself. And it was the time to think about what my next chapter was going to look like. My background has always been in operations, client services, project management. I have an MBA, and I was looking at all of my skill set and what I really enjoyed doing. And that, coupled with talking to people who were in the process of divorce, I saw an area that wasn't being covered by divorce professionals. When I was getting divorced, there wasn't the team concept. It was you had an attorney, you had your therapist, and the attorney would pull in what he or she needed to move the case along with other divorce professionals. There was no one guiding me as to what the best financial decisions might be, what the best thing to do with my home or mortgage, no coach for sure guiding me through this process. And in talking with people, I found that there was no structure in it for them to know what to do first, second, third, fourth, how to educate themselves and really take charge of their process. So my thought process was going from someone who is being led primarily by a divorce attorney to taking charge, having a divorce attorney guide you, but you are, using your team and educating yourself. So Post Divorce Force was born. And the purpose of Post Divorce Force is to help people with the logistical transitions affected by divorce. So my statement is, you have an attorney, you have a therapist, now you have to get things done. Those things could be having to sell the house, all that's involved with selling the house. There's a lot of details. When we've moved in our past, moving's not so much fun. Even if you're going to brighter and larger and better pastures, well, this isn't one of those moments. This is really not a great reason to have to move, and there's plenty to do. I help facilitate or create a project plan for someone to follow so that they don't have to figure that out on their own. Bandwidth is not really great when you're getting divorced. So I help them with that. If they're staying in their home, what needs to happen, possibly changing everything into their name from their soon-to-be exes. I also help with day-to-day finance if that wasn't your role in the marriage. Everybody has roles and responsibilities. And once you get divorced, now it's all your responsibility. So I help people to embrace what their new responsibilities are without any judgment, because the role you played was incredibly important. I also help with the organization of child custody. So that includes the calendaring and the shared expenses, just setting that up, understanding what will work best for your family. And I also help with some online accounts. I really meet people where they are. And I am part best friend, part project manager, part coach, and 100% action oriented.
I think it's so cool what you're doing, and it is so needed in this space. I remember going through my divorce, and luckily I did have a financial background. But like you said, you only have so much bandwidth, and we tend to put all of our stock into the attorneys And while we may have the very best attorney there is under the sun, the attorney is specialized in his or her area, which doesn't necessarily include the financial domain, the getting things done domain of, retitling and moving accounts and just all of the tasks that are associated with it. And at the Divorce Lending Association, we very much encourage that team effort because we do believe it takes several partners to come around you and help you through that process. And even if you have, like you mentioned, the attorney and the counselor, in most situations, they're not communicating with one another.
Right.
So I think that team effort is it's so critical and it's so beneficial to the individual.
So what I like to do is I like to meet people at the very beginning stages. I like to introduce them to my services and give them a little bit of an idea what might be coming down the path. Most people haven't been through divorce. They don't know what to expect. And I like to give them just a few assignments at the beginning, whether they end up working with me or not. But I'd like for them to write themselves a letter reminding themselves of why they're going through this process. Because it has been my experience that you'll need to go back to that letter during this journey to remind yourself of why you're doing this. I also like for them to write down their fears, what they are fearful about this process. And the next thing I would like them to do is find 3 attorneys to talk to if they haven't found one yet, learn about the different ways one could get divorced. I also encourage them to meet with 3 financial advisors, see who you connect with, see who might be giving you the advice you want to hear in words you understand. I also encourage them to potentially reach out to a divorce coach, which is different than your therapist, and educate yourself. Look at that list of fears and go down it and attack it with education. Understand, maybe you feel you're going to be homeless. Well, talk to your financial advisor. Chances are that isn't going to happen. And I also want them to recognize that divorce is 5% legal and 95% emotional, and to keep that in mind. It is incredibly emotional. There's no doubt about that. But at the end of the day, it is a business deal. It's a legal transaction. It is surrounded by oodles and oodles and oodles of emotion. And we need to work with ourselves, with the help of our team, to know when we need to set aside the emotion and make some logical business decisions, and when we can go ahead and let the rest of the emotion flood us. So that's what I like to do at the beginning.
Well, you're spot on with that business aspect of it. And I help my clients see that as well, that yes, it is highly emotional, but the divorce process itself is business. And so it's a matter of separating all those things that have been woven together, and it takes a lot of work.
It does.
One of the things that you just mentioned is like encouraging them to seek a financial advisor. And one of the things that I often see is that women traditionally have stepped away from being involved in the financial decisions of the household. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that they don't pay the bills or handle something when something's broken, but it seems like the husband more often is the one making the big picture decisions of where they're going to invest money and how they're going to invest and how much they're going to set aside for that. And, all those things, even the house, the financial aspects of the house. And the women, in many occasions, have opted out of even being cognizant of those things. So then they go to get a divorce and they don't want to use the financial advisor of the husband. They want to find somebody that they can start with, ground floor, resonate with. And I think that is important actually important for all people to find somebody to work with that speaks your language and that will
Right.
listen to you.
Part of my business, I do a lot of networking with divorce professionals, and I love speaking with financial advisors and getting to hear their stories and get to hear how they chose what the role that they're in. And several of them have been divorced and understand the role that women often are in at that time. So, I again look at your fears. Let's tackle them. And I think a lot of it is tackling with education. But yes, incredibly important. Also, understanding what's the story with your house. How much more on the mortgage can you, if you want or can stay there, can you really afford to stay there and carry the home? Is it the best financial decision for you? And it's not just an emotional decision. We understand that there's tons of emotion there, but really work with your team and understanding, is this really the best decision for you?
I agree with you because I do think that a lot of women in particular tend to want to hold on to the house because of the memories and the kids and all sorts of reasons. And maybe they can afford it, but by affording it, they can't afford other things. So they can't afford, I don't know, the kids' sports, or, they have to eat in every night and can't even order a pizza. So it's a matter of quality of life too.
Exactly. And a good financial advisor is going to help you build and design and understand your new budget and help you make educated decisions based on reality. And there are other people on your team that will help you bridge that emotional gap. But it's great to have all these professionals guiding you.
I completely agree. So if you were giving advice to somebody that's contemplating divorce, or maybe they're beyond that, they're actually starting to move down this path, and you just had like one little nugget that you could pass on to them, what would that be?
Well, I guess it's what I've started at the beginning of our conversation, and that is write yourself a letter as to why. Why are you doing this? And educate yourself. Those are the most, and stay true to yourself. Absolutely. Your mindset's going to get a bit muddled through the process. The emotional burden really becomes very heavy, and your bandwidth and ability to make sound decisions becomes more difficult. But going back to that original letter to yourself is really helpful. And it keeps you, to me, it's something that can keep you grounded as to why you're doing this and what your goals are and what your wishes are for the future.
I think that's a great piece of advice. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. So if people wanted to get in touch with you, how would they go about doing that? Where's the best way to find you and connect with you?
Sure. Well, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. And I also have a website, and it's postdivorceforce.com. And my contact information is there. And I offer a free 30-minute consultation. But I wouldn't wait to the end of your divorce. I'd start at the beginning and let's get acquainted. Let me learn a little bit about you. You can learn a little bit about how I might help you, and keep me in mind during the process. And when you're feeling a little overwhelmed and you need that personal BFF, coach, project manager to step in and get things accomplished for you.
That's awesome. Well, I agree. People need to reach out at the beginning when things are getting started, because we can help them so much more if we can be part of the beginning process and hopefully help them avoid some of the obstacles that could potentially be out there.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Sherry. It's been a pleasure talking with you, and I look forward to conversations in the future.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.